All right, we are live, I assume. I hope the sound is good. And apologies ahead of time. You might hear knocking and so forth. It is coming from construction where I live. So anyways, but the question of the day is, does the Pope have the right to abolish an ancient liturgy? Can he abolish the Byzantine Rite? Can he abolish the Coptic Rite and replace it with his new creation created by committee? Would the Copts accept that? Would the Catholics of the Eastern Rites accept that? Would the Orthodox accept that? Would any Christian before 60, 70 years ago accept that? And the answer to this is absolutely not. Now, the question of the matter is, a lot of people believe the Pope has the full authority to do as he pleases with the liturgy. It is a discipline of the Church, after all, and he is the head of discipline. He can decide the discipline and governance of the Church. And that's the whole basis of the liturgical reform, that the Pope has the power to abolish the ancient rites of the Roman Church, or any other church for that matter, and replace them with new creations. This is the basis. He has the full supreme authority given to him by Vatican I, or recognized in Vatican I. But is this true? Is this a fact? Is this, true? No, and the answer is absolutely not. And it's not me saying it. I will be quoting basically Monsignor Klaus Gamber, who was lauded by Pope Benedict XVI, at the time Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. And he basically destroys this notion, this false belief. And what brought it to my attention is, I'm a fan, so I have to say I'm a fan, so I don't... it's not a hit on Timothy Gordon, but Timothy Gordon, in one of his latest videos, which I did enjoy, and I encourage you to watch it, with, this noise is bothering me. I hope you can't hear it. That's all I hope. With Patrick Coffin, on several occasions in that video, he stated that, the ancient liturgy is just a discipline. It's just a discipline. So, the Pope can do it. He can ban the Latin Mass. He can force you to go to the Novus Ordo. It is just a discipline. And Patrick Coffin didn't say a word. And the answer is no. Timothy Gordon, cool dude, with your rock band. As I said, I'm a subscriber to his channel. I do enjoy watching his videos. So I might sound mean today, but this is annoying. It is not a discipline. And let's get into it. So that's what brought it to my attention, because it is the whole basis of the destruction of the Roman Rite. Pope Francis just banned the Latin Mass. He overthrew Summorum Pontificum. Actually, no, not even one word of his documents. Even he abrogates or abolishes the ancient liturgy. Not even one word of Traditionis Custodes, or none of that. And again, to pick on Patrick Coffin again. Not Patrick Coffin. Sorry, Tim Gordon. He says, the liturgy is just the liturgy. It's just a discipline, and it's the same faith. Actually, when Traditionis Custodes came out, I have a couple of videos on it. All the Pope Francis, using the term Pope loosely, Francis, bootlickers explicitly stated the purpose of the desire to completely abolish the ancient rite was because it exhibited a different ecclesiology, a different faith than the post-conciliar faith. That is why it had to be suppressed. So it teaches a different faith. And now a liturgy which originated in the late 60s teaches a different faith than the liturgy pre-1969, which is the true faith being taught in which liturgy. So you decide. Now, to know exactly, and I'm not going to, I gave you the conclusion, Monsignor Klaus Gamber said, no, a pope has no authority to alter, not just ban the ancient liturgies of apostolic origin, that there is not even one single document that gives the Pope or the Holy See the power or authority to even abolish or change a single local liturgical rite. And this is Pope Benedict XVI, Cardinal Ratzinger, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith for 1 billion years, endorsed Klaus Gamber as one of the very few true liturgists left in the church. So this should be it. And you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to suggest a few, I'm going to go through it step by step, showing you why it is actually part of the faith, part of the doctrine of the church, that we must hold on to the received and approved rites of the church, which is the apostolic rites, whether east or west or north or south, it doesn't matter, because they originated from the apostles and grew over the centuries. They were not manufactured in 1969 by the little bug, Bug Nini and his cohorts of heretics. No, they grew through the ages of faith. So we're going to see Vatican I, which echoes, actually we're going to start Council of Trent, Vatican I, Cardinal Ratzinger's introduction to Klaus Gamber's book, Reform of the Roman Liturgy, in which Cardinal Ratzinger, as Benedict XVI, demolishes the liturgical renewal of the post-Vatican II era. And then we're going to go through, actually, the portions of Klaus Gamber's book, Reform of the Roman Liturgy, which deals specifically with this topic of whether the Pope has that power or authority. And actually, he states again that a Pope, like according to several eminent ancient post-Trent theologians, cardinals, a Pope becomes a schismatic, it falls into schism. If he attempts to abolish the ancient rites and replace them with new ones. So how can Paul VI be called a saint? That is a question for you to ponder. So I'll show you a few, let me share this screen here, share this tab. Let's see if you can see it. Oh, no, you can't. So here's gonna go full screen. This is a book, if you're interested in actually what the popes taught in the modern era, I think from Benedict XIV or whatever. It is a several hundred-page compilation of papal teaching up to 1962. And it was done by Benedictine monks of Solesme and published by the Daughters of St. Paul. So it's called Papal Teachings on the Liturgy. Unfortunately, this is out of print. But I mean, I guess you can still, they're asking $279. Yeah. Actually, I was surprised and delighted actually to find it online in a PDF form. So just use DuckDuckGo and search for Papal Teachings on the Liturgy, and you will find the full book in PDF form. And I found it. I said, wow, I have that book, but I'm not at my other location with my library, so I can't grab it. So I found the whole book online. So this one, if you want to know what the popes thought, how they considered the liturgy, you have to see that it has always been upholding the ancient liturgies, no innovation, no novelty, restoration of what was lost, never innovation, period. And even one of the last documents of John the 23rd, where he talks about the revision of the rubrics, almost identical words from John the 23rd about useless repetitions, and which were echoed at a revision of the rites. When he's talking about the revision of the rites, it is specifically talking about the rubrics. It is not talking about the whole liturgy of the Mass. So when Vatican II talks about revision of the rites, this document was created when John the 23rd was Pope. That's what should be understood. But it doesn't really matter, because always it is no Pope, no council, no church has the power to abolish the ancient liturgies, period. And the problem with this is that, not the problem, but the deception, even Catholic Answers tries to deceive, not tries, actually deceives and lies outright to a questioner who says, well, didn't the Council of Trent say you cannot alter the ancient rites, that you have to embrace them? And the Catholic Answers, the priest who answered it, lies and says, no, you're mistaken. Actually, the Council of Trent says the Church has the full power, and she always has the power and authority to alter the liturgy as she pleases. Now I'm gonna show you this full screen and go through it quickly, and then I'm gonna see the lies. Does the new Mass violate Trent's decree? The answer from Catholic Answers was by Father Charles Grondin, however you pronounce his name. So the question is, how does the new Mass not violate the Council of Trent, Session 7, Canon 13, which says that that changes to approved rites aren't allowed? That's the question. We're going to look at that section, actually. So the answer. And we're going to see the section, and then we're going to, from the Council of Trent itself, the quote, and the answer as well from the Council of Trent. But anyways, here's the answer from Catholic Answers. The canon to which you refer only limits the clergy. Well, isn't the Pope part of the clergy? Yes, he is. Actually, the canon itself refers to whomsoever, like nobody. And the Pope is part of the clergy, and he's not allowed to touch the liturgy. So the answer is, the canon to which you refer only limits the clergy, which includes the Pope, from changing the rites of their own accord. You mean like Paul VI did, of his own accord? The Church still does not permit priests or bishops to change the approved liturgies. What consistent liturgy do you see anywhere? You've got a billion options, and there is no, okay, you can say whatever you want, but approved liturgy, technically, but in reality, no. So the Church still does not permit priests or bishops to change the approved liturgies of the Church at their whim. But, the Pope, who is a bishop, can change the liturgies at his whim, I guess. Right, Father? The Council of Trent recognized the right of the Church to make changes to the rites of the Church. Now, this is the lie. This is the lie, because the Council of Trent actually does not say this. Let's look at his statement again, continue it. So he pretends to quote the Council of, actually he does quote the Council of Trent, but he perverts the meaning. He says, it declares, that's a quote from the Council of Trent of session, he mentioned it, session, Council of Trent, session 21, chapter 2. Which we're going to see again in full. But anyways, it declares further that in the dispensation of the sacraments, notice the words, it's in the dispensation of the sacraments, nothing to do with the rites used in the sacraments. The Church may, according to circumstances, times, and places, determine or change whatever she may judge most expedient for the benefit of those receiving what? The sacraments, them, or for the veneration of the sacraments. And this power has always been hers, the Council of Trent. So this whole quote is about the power of the Church in the what? Dispensation of the sacraments. The way, okay, you have to receive it kneeling, not standing. You have to fast before baptism. You have to... These are the methods of the dispensation of the sacraments. And the Church has the right to say, well, you know what, the ancient custom of fasting from water and food from midnight till receiving Holy Communion on Sunday, that's the ancient custom. Even Pius XII stated it, but he loosed it during World War II, loosened it to 3 hours. But he still asks that the ancient custom be maintained if possible. So this is the power of the Church, which she has in the regulation and changing of the dispensation of the sacraments. It has nothing to do with the Church having the right and power to alter the liturgy, to alter its rites, to alter the apostolic customs. None of that. So this is a Catholic answers total and absolute lie. So, and again, that is clear from the documents of the Trent. So we're going to go, because I'm going to go through these two sections from Trent, the two documents, and the creed, the credo, the declaration of faith of Vatican I, which supposedly gave the power that the Pope to do whatever he wishes with the liturgy, supposedly. And actually the creed of Council of Vatican I is the same creed of the Council of Trent. The creed of the Council of Trent was taken over by the Vatican I, repeated for all intents and purposes, 99.9%, except it actually adds, it says, okay, we also accept the decrees of Trent on justification and so forth. So it is the same creed of Trent, was repeated by Pius IX at Vatican I, which gave him the infallibility, but not impeccability, and he's not a walking God. So let us go through the decree. So the question and the answer. Does the Pope have the power to alter the liturgy? The answer is no, period. Any liturgy, not even a local custom. So here's, let me just share the screen. I'm always getting confused here sometimes. There we go. Let's see. Then maybe, where are we here? No, that's Catholic Answers. All right, here. Okay, let's see, what do you guys see? Oh, no, we gotta change this one, share this one. All right, here we go. Decree concerning the sacraments and decree concerning reform. That's the Council of Trent, who actually was a dogmatic council, taught dogma and doctrine infallibly, unlike Vatican II, which was, even according to Benedict XVI, one of the periti of Vatican II, it restricted itself to being a merely pastoral council that defined no dogma. And this is his speech to the Chilean bishops in 1988. So let's go to the section in question. Canon 13. If anyone. It doesn't say if anyone except the Pope. No, if anyone. Anyone means anyone. Says that the received and approved. Received, because that term, this quotation, received and approved, is repeated even in the council, the Declaration of Faith of Vatican I. If anyone says that the received and approved rites meaning the rituals, the rites of the Catholic Church, so that includes any and all ancient rites, accustomed to be used, meaning rites of tradition. Rites coming from the apostles, they're accustomed to be used. They're not invented, they're not manufactured, they're not came up with by committee. Canon 13, if anyone, which includes the Pope, says, or a council, or a council of, a regional council of bishops, it doesn't matter. If anyone says that the received and approved rites of the Catholic Church, accustomed to be used, meaning the traditional ones, in the administration of the sacraments may be despised. They have despised the ancient rites, and they replaced them with new ones. Even now, when Traditionis Custodes came of Jorge, he and his ilk and his theologians said, yeah, it has to be despised because it teaches a different ecclesiology. The ancient rites teach a different faith than the new one. That's why it has to be abolished, because we want to institute a different ecclesiology in the heads and minds and hearts of the faithful. So if anyone says that the received and approved rites of the Catholic Church, accustomed, meaning the traditional one, received to be used in the administration of the sacraments, may be despised or omitted by the ministers without sin, at their pleasure. Okay, well, it's Paul VI, I don't want to celebrate the ancient liturgies anymore, so I'm going to, I don't want to do them. I'm going to maybe make new ones. Actually, the theologians say you become a schismatic at that point, or may be changed by any pastor, that includes the Pope. And the word used here is actually any pastor, whomsoever. And Father Hesse, we're going to see it, he actually has the Latin, it shows you whomsoever, if anyone, and whomsoever, meaning anyone, and in meaning whomsoever, which includes, of course, the Pope. If any pastor of the churches to other new ones. So if anybody wants to change the received and approved rites of the church, which were accustomed to be given and used in the sacraments, to, first of all, omitted or despised or changed by anybody to other new ones, let him be anathema. Let him be accursed. Let him be anathema. And Paul VI himself called his new creation, what did he call it, boys and girls? The Novus Ordo, the new rite. And I actually have a video of Paul VI's two speeches when he introduced his new liturgy. He calls it a new rite. He calls it the liturgical innovation or novelty of the new rite. These are the very words of Pope Paul VI. And he contrasts it with the Roman rite. I have a video on Pope Paul VI's two letters explicitly stating the fact. So, and what does that make him do under the decrees of Trent? It says here what it says. So the answer, of course, of so-called Catholic answers of the priest was, hey, the Council of Trent actually gave the church the power to do whatever she wishes. Here's the answer. Here's the full quotations of Trent, chapter 2. The power of the church concerning what? The rites used in the administration of the sacraments? The ancient apostolic rites? No. It is what? The power of the church concerning what? The dispensation. The giving of the sacrament of the Eucharist, in this case, on the Eucharist. It declares furthermore that in the what? The dispensation of the sacraments. Sorry, I didn't put the screen here. So the power of the church concerning the dispensation of the sacraments of the Eucharist, it declares, the council, that in the dispensation of the sacraments, the church may, according to circumstances, times, and places, determine or change whatever she may judge most expedient for the benefit of those receiving them, the sacraments, or the veneration of them, of the sacraments. So it is not the alteration of the rites. She has the right to regulate the dispensation of the sacraments, not the alteration of its liturgical, the received and approved rites used in the administration of the sacraments. No, she does not have that right. Nowhere does it say that. And this power has always been hers. The apostle, meaning St. Paul, seems to have clearly intimated this when he said, "Let no man so account of us as of the ministers of Christ and the dispensers of the mysteries of God." Yeah, the word sacrament is mysteries in the Eastern churches. And that even in the traditional Roman Rite, sometimes in the Missal, it will say the mysteries, if you notice. And that he himself exercised this power as in many other things. So, in this sacrament, is sufficient manifest, for after having some instructions regarding its use, he says, "The rest I will set in order when I come." So the rest I will set in order when I come. So St. Paul actually arranged the liturgy quite well. "Wherefore, though from the beginning, the Christian religion, the use of both forms." So now it's talking about the dispensation of the sacraments. I'm going to dispense the body and blood, or just the body, or just the blood. So this is the power of the church. It is not the alteration of the rite. It is the dispensation of the sacrament. So from the beginning of the religion, the use of both forms has not been infrequent. Actually, it was universal. Since that receiving under one kind of the body usually was during exceptional times of crisis, crimes, persecution. But other than that, the faithful receive both body and blood. Yet since that custom, see, the church binds herself to custom, has been already very widely changed in the West. Holy Mother Church, cognizant of her authority in the administration of the sacraments, not the alteration of its rites, has induced by just and weighty reasons approved this custom. So the church can approve a custom of communicating under either species, and has decreed that it be considered the law, so we can have either or, which may not be repudiated or changed at pleasure without the authority of the church. So this is the response. This is the true response of Council of Trent. It does not say in one word that the church has the authority to alter its rites, to alter its received and approved rites, as it specifically stated. No, it has the right to change the requirements or the dispensation of the sacraments, but not the actual rites of the sacraments. Now we go to the supposed council, which gave the Pope godlike powers to rule as an absolute monarch, which of course Benedict XVI condemned, saying the Pope is not an absolute monarch whose will is law. But he is subject to tradition, he is subject to doctrine, he is subject to liturgy, basically. Even the Council of Vatican II itself says that the Pope is subject to tradition. He is subject to the Word of God. He is not above the Word of God, but he is his servant. So here's now the decree, which is better? Let's go full screen for you guys. Here we go. This is the Vatican I's. It starts with the profession of faith. The profession of faith. So the church has four creeds: the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, the Athanasian Creed, Creed of Saint Athanasius, and the Creed of Trent. These are the four creeds of the church. They are infallible, and they are the faith. You must believe all the creeds fully, and they are called the creed because it is a matter of faith. So that is, let's see what Vatican I, the Creed of Vatican I, Session 2, 6 January 1870, profession of faith. I, Pius IX, the most, I am tradition, actually, well, maybe I'm going to mention it now. Pius IX, I guess he wanted to push for the infallibility, the definition. And he got mad and he said, apparently, I don't know, yes, I am tradition, I am the church. That's Pius. Well, and no, you're not the church, but if one understands it in a certain way, yes, you are tradition because you are embodiment of tradition. You must hold tradition. You are the guardian of tradition. You are the guardian of the church. So why you can say, yeah, I'm tradition. I am the church. It's kind of pushing it, but yeah. He emphasized the importance of tradition. So anyways, let's look at the profession of faith fully. I, Pius, Bishop of the Catholic Church, with firm faith, believe and profess. Believe and profess each and every article contained in the profession of faith which the Holy Roman Church uses, namely. So he's going to talk about the different, I believe in God, blah, 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 but we're going to go to what is interesting for us. Number 2. So this is one of the articles of the creed which the Roman Church believes and professes to be true. And Pius IX bound himself and professed it, the Pope of tradition. Okay? Number 2, that he apostolic and ecclesiastical traditions and all other observances and constitutions of that same church I most firmly accept and embrace. Accept and embrace. And then we continue further down. Number 5. I likewise receive and accept the rites of the Catholic Church which have been received and approved. So the received and approved rites of the Catholic Church, which, remember, the Council of Trent received and approved rites, which nobody can alter. Pius IX here in the creed of Vatican I, which is the creed of the Council of Trent, is the exact same creed, declares, I likewise receive and accept the rites of the Catholic Church which have been received and approved in the solemn administration of all the aforesaid sacraments. And what did the Council of Trent give the Church power over? The Council of Trent specifically stated that the Church has power over the administration of the sacraments, not over the rites. So here, the Creed of Vatican I, which is the Creed of Trent, states that I likewise received and accept the rites of the Catholic Church which have been received and approved in the solemn administration of all the aforesaid sacraments. So this is the creed, and it ends, this true Catholic faith, outside of which none can be saved, which I now freely profess and truly hold, and is what I shall steadfastly maintain and confess by the help of God in all its completeness and purity until my dying breath. And I shall do my best to ensure that all others do the same. This is what I, the same pious promise, vow and swear to help, so help me God and these holy gospels of God. So this is the Catholic faith. So you have to hold on to the received and approved rites of the Catholic Church, accustomed to be used in the administration of the sacraments. So Trent forbade the alteration of the rites, because this has always been the custom of the Church from the beginning. No pope, no bishop, no council decided, well, you know what, we don't like these liturgies, let's alter them. The Russian Orthodox Church in the 20th, early 19th century, 20th century, the patriarch said, well, you know what, we're going to change our Russian Rite, which is the Byzantine liturgy, the Russian usage, let's put it this way, to conform more closely to the Greek usage. So instead of going with the two fingers like this, which is actually a more ancient custom, we're going to go with the like this, or like this, instead of like this. And changing the way you pronounce or change the spelling of the name of Jesus. This caused a schism in the Russian Orthodox Church between the old believers and basically they call them the innovators because they have altered the liturgy of the received and approved rites of the Russian Church. So this has been custom like throughout the Church, East and West, until, of course, the 20th century when major tinkering started to happen, and of course the total abolition of the rite by Paul VI in 1969. Abolition meaning not legally, but by introducing what he himself called the liturgical novelty of the new rite to replace the Roman rite. So there's a talk by Father Gregory Hesse, which he passed away years ago. Let's go full screen here. And so he was appointed theologian by the Holy Father, John Paul II. He has his doctorate from the Pontifical University of Rome in theology and canon law, ordained as a priest in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome in 81. He served as secretary to Cardinal Stickler between 86 and 88. He was associated with the Society of St. Pius X and its founder, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. So he did a big long talk, but we're going to concentrate simply on this part of the Council of Trent. Quotations regarding the unchangeability of the sacraments. Canon 13, Council of Trent, Session 7 of the Council of Trent says, if anyone says that the received and approved rites, see, this is the quote, received and approved, the Church is accustomed to using traditional rites, period, of the Catholic Church, want to be used in the solemn administration of the sacraments, so the rites are different than the administration, may be condemned, or without sin may be omitted at pleasure of the ministers, or be changed by any pastor of the churches, whomsoever. That word sometimes does not appear in translations. Into new ones, let him be anathema. So Father Hesse continues, says, some translations in English mistranslate as to be changed by any pastor of the churches into new ones. The word whomsoever includes the Pope himself, who is the prime minister, prime pastor. In the Latin, per quem cumque ecclesiarum pastorum. Cumque. The Council of Trent does not need to tell me that any pastor cannot change the rites. Pope Innocent III said that if any future pope tries to change the sacraments, he must not be followed. At the Council of Florence, Pope Eugene IV had as his theologian Cardinal Torquemada, who wrote a book titled Summa Ecclesia, which says that if a pope tries to change the sacraments, he puts himself outside the church. For this work, he becomes a schismatic. Pope Eugene IV gave him title Defender of the Faith. And this same fact is stated by Father Paul Kramer. Pope Pius V, in response to the Council of Trent's dogmatic definitions, wrote his bull Quo Primum. This bull clearly states that the Roman Rite and those rites greater than 200 years old cannot be changed, and that any past priest cannot be forced to say any other rites. All popes after this time, up to and including Pope John XXIII, interpreted Quo Primum as binding on them. That is why it was always included in as the preface or the first page of the Missal. So now finally we will get to Klaus Gamber. Let me show you. This is the book. This is the book. Again, I'm not sure if it is out of print or still available. It's called The Reform of the Liturgy, Its Problems and Background. I have the copy myself, but I don't have it on me at the moment. But again, luckily, I found the full text online. I couldn't believe it. So it is available online if you search for it. I mean, if you can buy it, purchase the actual paperback, that'll be best. But if you don't, it is available online. As a matter of fact, this is the English translation. The original version, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith under Pope John Paul II, wrote the preface for this book of the French edition. And I found, actually there's a link to the French original, and I found two different translations of the French introduction by Pope John Paul II, by Cardinal Ratzinger, who became, of course, Pope Benedict XVI. So this is one translation, which is basically the same thing. No two translations are identical, but I found another translation here from the New Liturgical Movement website, and it is a stunner, actually. This is the true understanding of Cardinal Ratzinger, of Pope Benedict XVI, regarding the liturgical renewal, his true feelings about that liturgy. And it is the introduction to Klaus Gamber, who basically demolishes this idea that the Pope has the power to alter the liturgy and ban the ancient rites and introduce new ones. So let's go through what Cardinal Ratzinger said, or Pope Benedict XVI, and of course then finish off with Klaus Gamber, not just this section, plus other select portions from his book, and I encourage you to actually read the whole thing. All right, let's get, we'll read this thing. You know what? I will go full screen for you. I should do this way. I'll do it this way. All right, let's go. Where is the... All right, so this is the French, so published Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, translation of Cardinal Ratzinger's preface to the French edition of Klaus Gamber. And there's a link to the French edition if you want to go read the actual French one. Klaus Gamber. And this is the introduction. Klaus Gamber, the fearlessness of a true witness. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict XVI. So I'll try to read it a bit fast so we can finish up. A young priest recently said to me, "Today we need a new liturgical movement." This was the expression of a concern which in our day only the willfully superficial could dismiss. What mattered to this priest was not to conquer new and daring freedoms. What freedom have we not already arrogated to ourselves? Cardinal Ratzinger says, we can do whatever the hell we want to do with the liturgy. Nobody says anything. He felt that we needed a new beginning from within the liturgy, as the liturgical movement had wanted when it was at the height of its true nature. That is, before the deforms. When it was not a matter of fabricating texts, inventing actions and forms, which is exactly what happened after Vatican II, but of rediscovering the living center, of penetrating the very fabric of the liturgy, so that the fulfillment of the liturgy would come from its very substance. The liturgical, now here Cardinal Ratzinger goes in and tears apart the liturgical deform of Paul VI and Annibale Bonini. The liturgical reform, in its concrete realization, has moved ever further away from this origin. The result has not been a revival, but a devastation. On the one hand, we have a liturgy that has degenerated into a show in which people try to make religion interesting by means of fashionable nonsense and enticing moral maxims, with momentary success in the group of liturgical fabricators, meaning people who fabricate, and an attitude of retreat all the more pronounced among those who seek in the liturgy not a spiritual showmaster, but an encounter with the living God, whom all doing becomes insignificant, for only this encounter can make us reach the true riches of being. On the other hand, there is the conservation of ritual forms whose greatness is always impressive. So ritual form, we must conserve the greatness of them is always impressive, but which push to the max, push to the extreme. So if they're not pushed to the extreme, it's very impressive. But if you push it to the extreme, manifests an obstinate isolation and finally leaves only sadness. Certainly, between the two, there remain all those priests and their parishioners who celebrate the liturgy with respect and solemnity, but they are called into question by the contradiction between the two extremes and the lack of internal unity. So this is the kind of the beginning of his hermeneutics of continuity of Benedict XVI. And unity and lack of internal unity in the church finally makes their fidelity seem fidelity to the novelty. So they are faithful to the novelties, to the novel rite, and their fidelity to the novel rite is put into question. Or like, what is wrong with you people? Which is exactly what Francis and his ilk and his junta and Traditionis Custodes are saying. Even they are banning Novus Ordo priests from celebrating the Novus Ordo of Paul VI in a very traditional and reverent manner, banning it. So, because that's extreme. So their fidelity seems to be merely a personal variety of neoconservatism. Because this is so, a new spiritual impulse is needed to make the liturgy once again a communal activity of the church for us, and to remove from it the arbitrariness of parish priests and maybe popes and their liturgy committees or the committees formed by Rome. One cannot manufacture a liturgical movement of this kind any more than one can manufacture something living, as they attempted to do after Vatican II. But one can contribute to the development by striving to assimilate the spirit of the liturgy anew, by publicly defending what one has thus received, but publicly defending what one has thus received, not invented and manufactured. This new beginning needs fathers who are models and who do not merely suggest the way forward. Those who are looking for such fathers today will inevitably meet the person of Monsignor Klaus Gamber, who was unfortunately taken from us too soon, but who perhaps precisely by leaving us has become truly present to us in all the strength of the perspectives he opened up for us, precisely because in leaving us he escaped the quarrels of the parties. He could, in this hour of distress, the fruits of the liturgical renewal, the springtime of Vatican II is this hour of distress, become the father of a new beginning. Gamber carried with all his heart the hope of the old, the real, the true liturgical movement. Perhaps because he came from a foreign school, He remained an outsider on the German scene, where he was not really accepted. Even recently, a dissertation ran into serious difficulties because the young researchers had dared to quote Gamber too extensively and with too much benevolence. But perhaps this sidelining was providential because it forced Gamber to go his own way and spared him the burden of conformity to novelty. I'm adding the novelty part myself. It is difficult to express in a few words exactly what the liturgist's quarrel is essential and what in the liturgist's quarrel what is essential and what is not. Perhaps the following indication might be helpful. J.A. Jungmann, one of the truly great liturgists of our century, defined liturgy in his time as it was understood in the West, especially through historical research, as a liturgy of development. This is kind of a novelty too, because you read the medieval writings on the liturgy, it is a received liturgy. It's not an invented liturgy, it was what was received. But it is truly there was development, but it occurred naturally through custom, not invented by committee or by a bishop. Probably in the contrast to the Eastern notion, which does not see liturgy as a process of historical becoming and growth, but only the reflection of the eternal liturgy, whose light through the sacred unfolding illuminates our changing time with its unchanging beauty and grandeur. Both concepts are legitimate and are not irreconcilable, which is true. Because the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom is different than the liturgy which was in the what is called the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom is different, slightly different than the liturgy as celebrated in Hagia Sophia in the 7th century. I have an old book which actually written by the first commentary on the liturgy back then. I can't remember the title off the top of my head at the moment. What happened after the council, after Vatican II, is quite different. It's quite different. It's not the same. Instead of a liturgy that is the fruit of a continuous development, a fabricated liturgy has been put in place. A fabricated liturgy has been put in place. Not the Roman Rite, it's the fabricated liturgy has been put in place. They left the living process of growth and becoming and entered into the manufacturing process. We no longer wanted to continue the organic development and maturation of a living thing that lives through the centuries. And we replaced it in the manner of a technical production by a fabrication. That's the liturgy of Paul VI, of the Novus Ordo Missae, and the Novus Ordo everything, all the 7 sacraments. A fabrication, a banal product of the moment. That's Cardinal Ratzinger, head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith for 1 billion years under John Paul II, later Pope Benedict XVI. So the new liturgy is a fabricated liturgy, a manufacturing process, a technical production, a fabrication, a banal product of the moment. That is the liturgy of Vatican II, after Vatican II, of Bernini and Paul VI, your regular Mass. This is what Benedict says, Gamber, with the vigilance of an authentic seer, meaning a prophet, and the fearlessness of a true witness, like a martyr. That's what a witness is. Opposed this falsification, entirely taught us. So he taught Benedict, he taught Ratzinger, he taught every Catholic, he taught us the living fullness of a true liturgy, thanks to his incredibly rich knowledge of the sources. As a man who knew and loved history, he showed us the multiple forms of the development and the path of the liturgy. As a man who saw history from within, he saw in the development and the fruit of this development the intangible reflection of the eternal liturgy, which is not the object of our making, of our manufacturing, but which can continue to mature and blossom like a flower or a fruit marvelously if we unite ourselves intimately to its mystery. The depth of this eminent man and priest should stimulate us his work may help us gain new momentum. And this is the introduction to the French edition of Monsignor Klaus Gamber's Reform of the Roman Liturgy by Cardinal Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI. Now, it is time, as they say, it's time to actually look at what Klaus Gamber himself said and finish up this video. Because no Pope, no Church, no Council, no nothing can alter, change, or abolish the ancient received and approved rites of the Catholic Church. Nobody. The Pope and the Church have the power for the dispensation of the sacraments, but not over the rites of the sacraments. So let's go into Klaus Gamber now. Again, I'm really glad I was able to find the full text online, which I didn't anticipate to find, because I really wanted to give this quote of Klaus Gamber on the liturgy. Okay. Now, a word of warning. A word of warning. I might be going up and down the screen because there's a lot of things I want to mention, but we're going to, of course, concentrate. Maybe I'll skip the rest. I encourage you to buy the book or at least download it and read the whole thing, because it deals with a lot of stuff, history and development and so forth. But we will maybe concentrate a bit more on the power of the Pope or the power of the Church to alter the received and approved rites of the Church to the Apostolic liturgy. Does the Pope have that power? Does the Church have that power? In fact, Klaus Gamber says the Pope and the Church do not even have the power to alter a single local, maybe of a cathedral, liturgical rite. Not even one. And this is, you've heard the introduction by the head of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith and later Pope Benedict XVI of Klaus Gamber. So basically what he says, you should accept as true, because it is true. All right, so let's see. I put a few notations, so I really don't want to. Let's see here if I can find the first section quickly, and then we can. Oh, here we go. Came up pretty fast. I noticed something I said here. All right. So let's see if you can see what I'm seeing. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, America. You can see what I'm seeing. Okay, so, and part of it, he says, because tradition and local custom has always shaped liturgical worship. This is where liturgical worship is. It doesn't come from committees and the Church and the Pope and inventing new liturgies. No. So, in this book, you'll find actually different sections. So this is like almost different chapters. So this was this chapter called The Root Causes of the Debacle of Modern Liturgy. So I'm not going to search exactly for the one. I mean, it's coming up about the power of the Pope very soon. But anyways, let's go here. So he talks about this new reform, that it has turned to be a liturgical destruction of startling proportions, a debacle, worsening each passing year. And who can disagree now? And this reform was a dismantling of the traditional values and piety on which our faith rests. So the faith rests on the liturgy. Lex orandi, lex credendi. How you pray is what you believe. Your prayer will form your faith. Part of the apostolic tradition is apostolic liturgies, because in the ancient liturgies, they show us the ancient faith and how people prayed, and what they prayed is the faith of the Church. Instead of a fruitful renewal of the liturgy, what we see is a destruction of the forms of the Mass, which had developed organically during the course of many centuries. And added to this, the shocking assimilation of Protestant ideas brought into the church under the guise of the misunderstood term ecumenism. And again, Vatican II condemned Irenicism, which goes by ecumenism these days, with the resulting growing estrangement from the ancient churches of the East. So the Eastern churches are like, what is going on here? Because they maintained the Apostolic rites, and the Roman Church went into the Protestant direction. A turning away from the common tradition that has been shared by the East and the West up to this point in our history. So, yeah, that's the fruit of the deform of Paul VI and Bonini. It's a discipline as many people, including, unfortunately, hopefully now he knows better, Timothy Gordon. No, it's not a discipline, and no, the Pope does not have the right to do anything like that stuff. So he talks about, again, Pius V, that he respected local custom. He even respected local traditions, only 200 years old. Such a tradition was sufficient to free a diocese from the obligation of using the Roman Missal. But a lot of dioceses chose to adopt the Roman Missal. But actually, it was not a requirement at all. And it gives the incident of Pope Anicetus and Bishop Polycarp from Smyrna reached an agreement. Since both churches were able to cite existing traditions, each church was allowed to follow its own local tradition. I think this was about the schism of the churches in Asia Minor. Again, I have a video on Pope versus the East, or versus tradition. In it, it's from Eusebius. I quote what Eusebius, the historian, or first historians of the church, talks about this incident where the Pope, in 150, maybe this one, I'm not sure if this was this incident or another incident, but I think it is around year 150 or 180, the Pope commanded the Eastern churches of Asia Minor to celebrate Easter Sunday, or the Feast of the Resurrection, on Sunday with the custom of most of the churches, including the Roman Church. But the churches of the East of Asia Minor celebrated according to the Jewish reckoning. It doesn't matter when that day of what happened historically as Easter Sunday happened. That was the day they celebrated the resurrection. And they said, we cannot change this change. We have not altered anything. We have not innovated in nothing. In their letter to the Pope, they say, we have innovated in nothing but kept the tradition of the apostles. We have kept the tradition we received from St. John the Apostle. And they told the successor of Peter, quoting Peter himself back to the successor of Peter. They told the Pope at the time, they told him, sometimes we would have to we would rather obey God rather than men. And even though the Pope ordered them that if you don't follow our custom, you will be excommunicated. I will excommunicate you all. But St. Irenaeus and other fathers told them, like, calm down, man, relax. They're not doing anything. They're not innovating anything. They're keeping the tradition they received. So, and they did. And it took like 200 years or so afterwards before there was a unified Easter celebration. So yeah, the Pope has not godlike powers to override tradition. So anyways, it happened. Plenary and local church councils concern themselves not with inventing liturgies and inventing rites, only with the elimination of abuses in the execution of a liturgical rites. This is what happened. So the relevant question to 90% of modern Catholics, and to Tim Gordon, and to maybe even Taylor Marshall, and of course to the Pope's planers, all of them out there, is the Ritus Modernos a new title or a new rite, or does it represent an organic development of the traditional Ritus Romanus? Of course, the answer to that is no, it is not. I mean, you have to read the whole thing. I'm not going to go through it. To change any of its essential elements is synonymous with the destruction of the rite in its entirety. And he goes through a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go there. Now, here's the question we've been dealing with. This is the big question. Does the Pope have the power to do whatever he wants because he's a walking God and we have to bow down and worship at every word coming out from the Bishop of Rome, even if he is a validly elected Pope? Does the Pope, this is Klaus Gamber, again, remember the introduction by Cardinal Ratzinger, John Paul, the head of doctrine under John Paul II, and Pope Benedict, basically. This is the question of Klaus Gamber. Does the Pope have the authority to change a liturgical rite founded on apostolic tradition and developed over many centuries? We have already discussed that in the past, the church hierarchy did not exercise a strong influence on the development of the liturgical forms. Actually, almost none, because even various cathedrals had their own liturgical rite. It simply sanctioned a rite that grew out of local custom. So the church sanctioned a rite which grew out of local custom. And even the church practice of officially sanctioning a rite emerged relatively late, only after the printed liturgical books became popular, meaning after the Council of Trent. Before Trent, no pope, no council even dared to touch the liturgy. In the West, this practice began after the Council of Trent. So for 1700 years, 1600 years, no pope, no council, they didn't even approve a liturgical rite. It developed naturally. It is the rite of the cathedral. It is the rite of the diocese. It is the Missal of Shrewsbury or the Missal of Sarum. It is the Missal of Braga. It is not had to come up with by committee and approved by Rome and officiated by the Pope. And no, none of that stuff. This is all novelty. And even at Trent, all the Pope did was revise of the existing Roman Missal, removing some prefaces and minor things like that, and it was simply just the Roman Missal. And he only didn't even force any church or any diocese with a liturgy over 200 years to adopt his Missal, as long as it was old. Nowadays, if it is old, you have to ban it and you take the new, the exact opposite of what Pius V did. So referring to Canon 1257 of the Codex Iuris Canonici, it says, that's from this 1917 code, I believe, the supervision of the sacred liturgy. So like the supervision of the sacred liturgy depends only on the authority of the church. Therefore, no person, and this is basically comes from Trent, which talks about the administration of the liturgy, and now he explains what that means. The council did not elaborate on what the term supervision. I think this is from Vatican II or Trent, the supervision of the liturgy. Anyways, the council did not elaborate on what the term supervision of the sacred liturgy, sacra liturgiae moderatio, moderation of means. The moderation of the existing liturgy. Not make up your own liturgy. So we must understand, if we consider past practice and custom, however, the term cannot mean any type of sweeping revisions of the Mass, ritual, and the alteration of liturgical texts that we are now experiencing. It cannot be understood as that. So it has to be understood in a larger context. He does actually, maybe I'll come to it, maybe I'll miss it. He does say what supervision means approving printed books, revising already printed liturgies, making sure everything is correct, and approving and changing, approving new prefaces for feasts and forth. That is the supervision part. The argument could be made that the Pope, here's the thing, the crux of the question. The argument could be made that the Pope's authority to introduce a new liturgical rite, Paul VI himself called his creation the liturgical novelty or liturgical innovation of the new rite. He himself called it that. He had 2 speeches, which I've analyzed in the past. You can find them on my channel. And he explicitly talks that his liturgy is a new rite, a novelty. He uses that word, a novelty. Anyways, so the argument could be made that the Pope's authority to introduce a new liturgical rite has the Pope's authority. Okay, sorry, I'm going to say it again. The argument could be made that the Pope's authority to introduce a new liturgical rite, that is, to do so without a decision by a council, or with the decision of a council, I might say, can be derived from the full and highest power, plena et suprema potestas, he has in the Church, and that's coming from Vatican I, as cited by the First Vatican Council, i.e., that is the power over matters, quae ad how do I say that? Disciplinum, quae ad disciplinum, based upon the liturgy, et regimen ecclesiae per totum orbem, throughout the world, diffuse pertinent, what pertains to the discipline and rule of the Church. So, this power is over the discipline, the administration. That's the discipline. It's not the introduction of new rites. So the Pope has plain and supreme power over the discipline. And the liturgy is not a discipline. As Vatican Council of Trent himself explicitly states that distinguishes between discipline or administration and the actual rite. Same as the Creed of Vatican I itself makes clear there's a difference between the administration and the received and approved rites used in the administration of the sacraments. However, Timothy Gordon, however, Pope splainers, however, 95% of modern Catholics, the term disciplina in no way applies to the liturgical rite. The term discipline, in no way applies to the liturgical rite of the Mass or of any of the sacraments, particularly in the light of the fact that the popes have repeatedly, I told you at the beginning of this video, there's this book, The Teaching of the Popes on the Liturgy from the 1700s or something like that, up to 1962. You can watch the beginning of the video to see the link to the book. So again, he says here, particularly in light of the fact that the popes have repeatedly observed that the rite is founded on an apostolic tradition, and for this reason alone, the rite cannot fall into the category of discipliner and rule of the Church. So, and he has a quote of Pope Innocent I, 402 to 417. Pope Innocent I supports this demand for a uniform rite in his letter to the Bishop of Gubbio, a letter that dealt primarily with liturgical issues. So this is the Latin. Then I actually found the English translation here, but I did my own Google Translate. So here's what Pope Innocent I wrote. For who does not know, or, oh, I have to share this page here. Okay, so let's go for full screen so you can see. Okay, for who does not, Pope Innocent I, for who does not know or does not notice that what was handed down by Peter, the chief of the apostles, to the Roman Church and is still preserved by all, must be reserved, and nothing should be superseded or introduced which has no authority on which seems to take an example from elsewhere. So that was my Google Translate, and let's see what this I found. Actually, I kind of missed it, but I found the translation for it. It's further down. So the translation from here is, who would, that's Pope Innocent I in 402 says, who would not Where is this? Oh, who would not know, or that basically that what was handed down to the Roman Church by Peter, the prince of the apostles, and is kept even now, ought to be preserved by all, not innovated and thrown in the garbage, and nothing at all that authority or seems to take its example from another. So don't basically put stuff from other places. Ought to be added or introduced. So this is Pope Innocent I, and Gamber as well quotes Pope Vigilius in 538. So in a letter to the Metropolitan of Braga, Braga has their own liturgy actually, the Rite of Braga in Portugal, traditional Rite of Braga. Wherefore also we have arranged the aforementioned text of the canonical prayer, which through the kindness of God we have received and approved rites, remember, from the apostolic tradition. So no innovation, not making up your own stuff because you think you have supreme power to do so. No, the popes have explicitly said no. Okay, supervision. Okay, where did I find it? Okay, we saw that it says the term disciplina in no way applies to the liturgical rite, because you saw the Council of Trent makes a distinction between discipline or dispensation and the actual rite, completely different things. Klaus Gamber continues. In fact, nowhere is it mentioned that the Pope has the authority, or the Church for that matter, to change even a single local liturgical tradition. The Pope does not have the authority to change even a single local liturgical tradition. The fact that there is no mention of such authority in any document whatsoever from the ancient Church, or even the medieval Church, or the early modern Church, even Vatican I itself, strengthens our case considerably. Let's make sure. Okay. Strengthens our case such. Okay, consider. There are clearly defined limits to the plena et suprema potestas, full and highest powers of the Pope. For example, there is no question that even in matters of dogma or doctrine, he still has to follow the tradition. So the Pope cannot alter the tradition. He becomes a heretic. As, for example, saying that the death penalty is against the Gospels, for example, of the universal church. He still has to follow the tradition of the universal church. That is, as Vincent of Lerins says, what has been believed, quod semper, quod ubique, quod ab omnibus, by always, everywhere and everyone. In fact, there are several authors, eminent authors. We talked about Torquemada before, by Father Hesse mentioned him. In fact, there are several authors who state quite explicitly that it is clearly outside the Pope's scope of authority to abolish the traditional rite. The eminent theologian Suarez, who died in 1617. Again, remember what the Trent said. Trent said, this deceiving priest from Deceiving Catholic Answers, saying, the Trent said you can change the rite. When we saw it actually says it can change the administration or the discipline, but not the rite. It forbade the changing of the rite. And this is after Trent. The eminent theologian Suarez, who died in 1617, citing even earlier authors, such as Cajetan, who died in 1534, took the position that a pope that a pope would be schismatic. He would fall into schism if he, as is his duty, would not be in full communion with the body of the church. So he said, he wants to excommunicate half the church or something. As, for example, if he were to excommunicate the entire church, or if he were, that's from the theology, from Cajetan, Suarez, and we talked about Torquemada previously, were to change all the liturgical rites of the church that have been upheld by apostolic tradition. The Pope becomes a schismatic. The Pope does not have authority. The Church does not have the authority to alter its liturgies, to significantly alter its liturgies, to alter them, to demolish rites, to forbid ancient rites and invent new ones. So this should be an answer enough. He gives the citation for Suarez. If you want to read the Latin quotation here, it is available. That would becomes the Pope would becomes a schismatic, a schismaticus. Papa esse schismaticus. If he decides to excommunicate most of the church, or to abolish his ancient apostolic rites and liturgies, he becomes excommunicate. It's not those holding to the tradition who becomes excommunicate. It is those who are abolishing the tradition who become excommunicate. It is certainly not, I could end it right then and there, but we're going to finish up anyways. Just a few more kind of interesting quotes from the book. It most certainly is not the function of the Holy See to introduce the church to church reforms. The first duty of the Pope is to act as primary bishop, episcopus, supervisor. A supervisor, episcopus, a bishop, a supervisor. To be a guardian, a supervisor, a hand in, somebody who passes on. To watch over the tradition of the church, her dogmatic, moral, and liturgical tradition. This is the function of the Pope. He is not above tradition. He is not above doctrine. He is not above morality. Beginning with the Council of Trent, the supreme authority of the Holy See also extends, one might actually say, a novelty, an innovation of Trent. But it was done because the time of massive heresy and the perversion of existing liturgical books by inserting heretical by individuals teachings into the books. Well, that's the only reason why Trent actually went into the supervision of the existing liturgies, not inventing new ones, beginning with Trent. Let me actually go so you can see a bit better. Beginning with the Council of Trent, the supreme authority of the Holy See also extends to the revision of liturgical texts. That is, what does that mean? It means the review of newly printed editions, not inventing new rites, and to making such minor changes as introducing the propers of the Mass for a new feast. This is what supervision of the liturgy means. This is what Pius V did when he published in his Missale Romanum 1570, which was not a new missal. As we can also say that neither in the Roman Church nor in the Eastern Church has there ever been a patriarch or a bishop who, on his own authority, has undertaken reform of liturgical rites. And he gives the example of what happened in Russia. It wasn't even that much of it. It's changing of the name of how you spell the name of Jesus and how you hold your fingers for the cross, and very minor, one can say novelties for the Russian usage, but they were actually more in conformity with the Greek usage. Again, why are you? So this is where the old believers came from. Not only is the Ordo Missae of 1969 a change in the liturgical rite. Paul VI called it the new rite. Paul VI called it a novus ordo. Paul VI called his a novelty. Paul VI called it an innovation. Paul VI contrasted his missal to the Roman missal in his own speech. So not only is the Ordo Missae of 1969 a change of liturgical rite, but that change also involved a rearrangement of the liturgical year. Not only that, of course, they changed the entire liturgies of all 7 sacraments, including changes to the assignment of feast days of the saints. So basically, wholesale innovation, novelties, destruction of the Roman rite. It's a new rite. Everything has been changed. Everything has been altered. Certainly not, so whatever happened in the past did not constitute a change of rite, but the countless innovations introduced as part of the liturgical reform have left hardly any of the traditional liturgical forms intact, which means they created a new rite, a new liturgy, a new mass, a new liturgy for all the sacraments. Since there is no document that specifically assigns to the Apostolic See or an ecumenical council or the Pope himself or a patriarch or anybody the authority to change, let alone abolish the traditional liturgical rite. And since furthermore, it can be shown that not a single predecessor of Paul VI has ever introduced major changes to the Roman liturgy, the assertion that the Holy See has the authority to change the liturgical rite would appear to be debatable, to say the least. It is not even debatable. It is absolutely clear that the Holy See does not have such authority. You cannot invent authority from thin air and arrogate it to yourself, perverting the meaning of Vatican I with its own creed of Vatican I, upholding the ancient rites and liturgies of the Church, and the Church, Apostolic and ecclesiastical traditions, which are to be embraced in the creed of Vatican I, which supposedly gave the Pope the power to alter the liturgy as he pleases, which it did not. The Holy See does have the authority to approve and oversee the publication of liturgical books, but not alter the rites, and more generally to approve and oversee local liturgical traditions, not invent one. Invent an Amazon rite or invent a Mexican rite. Given that the liturgical reform, it's a fact, given that the liturgical reforms of Paul VI created a de facto new rite. So now he talks about being baptized in the ancient rite and the new rite. It's 2 different rites now. So I think I'm just going to go to the very end. I can't remember exactly where it is because I want to finish up and close up. Let's see what this thing. Let's see what that thing here is. In this environment, can we really talk about a unity of liturgical rite? Remember what Jorge Bergoglio says, and his Traditionis toilet paper of a document says, we want a unity in the liturgy, uniformity. He says, same story from the beginning. But so Klaus Gamber asks, in this environment, can we really talk about the unity of the liturgical rite? Today we are standing before the ruins of almost 2,000 years of church tradition. We cannot help being apprehensive. The numerous reforms, so-called, have damaged the church tradition to such an extent that it will be difficult to bring it back again. He didn't foresee Summorum Pontificum and its growth of tradition. That's why the merciful sledgehammer of Jorge came down on tradition. Today, dare we even ask whether after such a deconstruction, a destruction, a reconstruction of the traditional order would be possible. But one must not give up hope. So, we must not give up hope. Now, a few days ago, the Fraternity of St. Peter went to Pope Francis, basically kind of saying, "Thank you, Holy Father. Thank you, Holy Father. Thank you for approving our charism of maintaining the 1962 liturgical books. You are so good and nice, Holy Father. Thank you for not stomping down on our necks and destroying us and crushing us. Thank you, Holy Father. Well, I guess this is, I go to a fraternity parish, and I go to the Byzantine Rite as well. But anyways, this is being as wise as serpent, but as gentle as doves. Gentle as doves and wise as serpents. So yeah, you're being wise to talk to the Grand Dragon in Rome. In this matter, thank you, Grand Dragon, for not biting us and poisoning us and destroying us. You are our Holy Father, Holy Father. But in fact, as this is clear from the documents, no pope has the authority to abolish the ancient liturgy. He becomes a schismatic, if not an heretic. All right, let's finish up here. The real destruction of the traditional Mass, the real destruction of the traditional Mass and the traditional rites for all the seven sacraments, the destruction of the traditional Roman Rite. It's not a revision, it's a destruction. With a history of more than 2,000 years, is the whole what does that entail? This destruction of the traditional Roman Rite, the destruction of the traditional liturgy, is the wholesale destruction of the faith on which it was based. How you pray is how you believe. A faith that has been the source of our piety and of our courage to bear witness to Christ in His church, the inspiration of countless Catholics over many centuries. Will someone someday be able to say the same thing about the new Mass? No. Anyways, I will end it at, because I don't think I have any much more than that to say. Oh, what is this? What is this? Oh yeah, actually this is a good ending to it, because here he quotes some of the saints, and we'll end it at that. The visitor to a Christian house of God, Domus Dei, should enter it with the same purpose in mind as did the psalmist, to behold God's glory, and to sense His power, which is revealed to him in the liturgical rite of the Mass. In representative form, we behold the Lord in the veiled image of the Eucharist, because here on earth we cannot behold God's countenance without suffering death. There was a couple of quotes from a couple of saints, ancient saints. It doesn't matter. But this is the book. This is the response of Monsignor Klaus Gamber, who is lauded to highest heaven as a prophet, a seer, a true liturgist by Cardinal Ratzinger, later Benedict XVI. That no pope, no council has the power to alter or to ban or to abolish the ancient liturgical rites of the Church, or to replace them with new ones. And there is no document, not even one document, that gives the power or to the Pope, or to a patriarch, or to a council to even alter or abolish a single local liturgical rite. Period. End of story. And I've been saying that for years. But here it is. Okay, that's it. That's all. And let me circle quickly a couple of my three comments there. Greetings from Ireland. Greetings back to you as well, if you're still online. And actually, there's the monks in Ireland, the traditional monks in Ireland. They're in full communion with the Catholic Church. They're I can't remember the order's name, but I just received an email from them saying that they are having a pilgrimage coming up in Ireland, these traditional monks, Benedictine monks. So if you look them up, you can find, just search Traditional Monks Ireland Pilgrimage, or just Traditional Monks in Ireland, and their website should come up, because I just received an email from them saying, join us for this pilgrimage in Ireland. But of course, I'm not in Ireland, so have a good day. Let's see what this one says. If the Pope is subject to the liturgy, why did St. Pius V suppress certain liturgies? And as we have gone through the video, no, the Pius V did not suppress any liturgies. Pius V stated that any liturgy older than 200 years, so newer than 200 years, an invented liturgy, then becomes novelty. If you have books which are 200 years or older, then they are to stay, and they will only adopt the Roman Missal if the various churches or congregations or religious orders wish to do so. But no one was forced to adopt the Roman Missal of the Diocese of Rome, of the Roman Curia. But the only criteria was that your liturgy be at least 200 years. Of course, we have a liturgy now of like 60 years, invented out of nowhere with the help of Protestants to invent new liturgical destruction, a new rite, a liturgical novelty of the new rite, Paul VI's very own word, an innovation, Paul VI's own word, an annoyance, Paul VI's very own words. All right, finally, thank you for sharing the research and love of the true church, even a real pope. Yeah, well, Jorge, we have doubts about that one. Has not the right to abolish liturgical practice, much less a pseudo-usurper pope. That is absolutely true. Not a true pope, not a validly elected pope, not an ecumenical council can abolish any liturgy. No, the liturgy is of apostolic origin. Again, minor changes, maybe novelties crept in to be removed, printing errors to be adjusted. That's it. Not inventing new rites. So no pope, no council, nobody can alter the ancient rites or abolish the ancient liturgies or invent new ones and impose them upon the church. So Traditionis Custodes is a piece of toilet paper, and it should be treated as such. And no Pope is a holy father if he tries to abolish an apostolic liturgy and impose novelty. He no longer becomes holy, but he's the exact opposite of holy. In fact, he becomes a schismatic. That's it. That's all. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.